Hi, I'm John Malos. Welcome to this live edition of Connect with Me on the showroom floor at Ventura TV on this Monday morning. It's on the air, off the presses. Another major shakeup at the White House today. Actually took place on Friday, but new blood coming in again. Only 6 months into the administration. We'll have a guest live on the telephone from Iowa to talk about this, our media expert. 436-MeTV option 11. We have an open phone line. Call in, weigh in. Back in a moment. Should be a wild show.
Tonight I want to discuss the importance of the television medium to the American people.
All right, back here on the program on a Monday morning. Glad you are here. It is on the air, off the presses, and we're talking about the White House again today. And so, I suspect maybe our friend from Merced might call in today because of our guest situation here on Connect with Me on MeTV Fresno. Anyway, we're talking about the Trump administration. Before we get into that, a quick programming note for tomorrow. It's Tuesday. We'll talk about business with our good friend A.J. Rasomny. He's the owner of Great American Car Wash. And he has some tips on how to be a successful businessman and how to keep other businesses from stealing your employees, or at least your secrets, maybe. How about that? So AJ is going to be the guest tomorrow. He's a good friend of this program. He has been on many times before talking about books that he has written and how he has succeeded in his own business. So that's tomorrow. Meantime, watching us live on Comcast, channel 375 as usual. It's Comcast Cable TV. If you don't have Comcast Cable TV, Monday through Friday, live 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock in the morning. Buy one of those digital antennas over here at Ventura TV, hanging from the rafters. It's a cheap price, and you can catch us over the air broadcast, 43.6, 13.1. Over-the-air broadcast on the replay as well, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 13.6 YouTube, 8 o'clock tonight, 4.6 Biz TV. That's all over-the-air broadcast on those replays. And, of course, YouTube, you can catch us all day, all night, anytime that you feel like popping us up on the computer. Anyway, we're talking about the shakeup again. How many more shakeups are we going to have in the next 6 months if this continues? It's amazing. So Reince Priebus is out. John Kelly is in as of today. Kelly is a four-star general. He was the head of Homeland Security for Donald Trump. Now he is the chief of staff. There was a major shakeup last week. As you know, the new communications director is Anthony Scaramucci. He shook things up. He gave an interview to the New Yorker magazine just last week where he called Reince Priebus a schizophrenic, a paranoid schizophrenic. It brought shockwaves throughout the entire, I think, city of Washington, D.C., shockwaves through the political system and the White House. Actually, the language that Scaramucci used in the New Yorker interview was so crude and so profane, we can't repeat it on this program, even though it is Comcast Cable. I want to roll the videotape and show you what happened last week and what's happening today.
Turmoil inside the White House, pushback on President Trump's transgender ban, and a stall to Senate plans for a health care overhaul. This is a Fox News Alert. Good evening. I'm Brett Baer coming to you tonight from the White House, where it looks like the Trump administration is getting closer and closer to cleaning house over leaks within the administration itself. And it's getting interesting tonight. While over on Capitol Hill, the Senate cannot move forward with a planned vote-a-rama on health care because lawmakers don't even have the votes on a final plan yet. Another wild day in Washington. And it is just breaking now. We begin tonight with a fight that began overnight in a single tweet from new White House Communications Director Anthony Scaramucci, taking aim at the president's chief of staff, Reince Priebus. Despite deleting that tweet, Scaramucci is not backing down and reportedly getting vulgar with his attacks on other people in the administration. Correspondent Kevin Court joins me here on the North Lawn with a breakdown of what went down between two of the president's top aides and really an amazing story in New Yorker coming out just in the past few minutes.
Yeah, amazing and vulgar at the same time. You're going to hear a great deal about this, Brett, over the next several hours and maybe the next several days. We're talking about Anthony Scaramucci having a conversation with a reporter that, by the way, he called, and we understand he was actually not telling him it was off the record or on background in any way. So let me just share part of the conversation, and it was blue, to say the least. This is just one quote. Reince, speaking of his chief of staff, Reince, previous we're talking about, is a expletive, paranoid, schizophrenic, a paranoiac. Now, let's be blunt here. You and I have covered several White House administrations in the past, and we understand that palace intrigue is par for the course, especially for a new administration, but it's also fair to say that when it becomes burdensome or consistent, as it has in this case, it can certainly undermine the messaging, and that's especially important at a time when the Trump administration is trying to get on message, perhaps for the first time.
They are American heroes, and we salute them.
Even as the president today celebrated the bravery and loyalty to duty of law enforcement officers who helped stop the gunman who shot Congressman Steve Scalise and others at a GOP softball practice last month, it was his loyalty that was being called into question.
Sir, does the president have confidence in his chief of staff?
Look, I think I've addressed this question when it comes to staffing and personnel many times, that if the president doesn't, then he'll make that decision. We all serve at the pleasure of the president, and if he gets to a place where that isn't the case, he'll let you know.
Reince Priebus is under fire after being accused by new White House Communications Director Anthony Scaramucci of leaking his financial disclosure information to Politico. Scaramucci writing in a now deleted tweet, "In light of the leak of my financial disclosure info, which is a felony, I will be contacting the FBI and the Justice Department. #swamp at Reince45. Later, Scaramucci denied that he was singling out Priebus, tweeting, "Wrong." Tweet was public notice to leakers that all senior administration officials are helping to end illegal leaks.
If Reince wants to explain that he's not a leaker, let him do that. But let me tell you something about myself. I am a straight shooter, and I'll go right to the heart of the matter.
He's making clear that even though these documents are eventually procurable publicly, that somebody doesn't want him here. And somebody is trying to get in his way and scare him off from working here, which is a huge mistake.
Politico denies the form was leaked, citing its public records availability. If Priebus is on thin ice, he'd join the Attorney General Jeff Sessions on the list of those under increased presidential scrutiny. In a conversation with Fox News, Sessions said the steady barrage of Twitter takedowns haven't gone unnoticed.
Well, it's kind of hurtful, but the President of the United States is a strong leader. He is determined to move this country in the direction he believes it needs to go to make us great again. And he has had a lot of criticisms, and he's steadfastly determined to get his job done, and he wants all of us to do our jobs, and that's what I intend to do.
The president's tweets yesterday stating that transgender service personnel would no longer be allowed to serve in the U.S. military caught some senior Pentagon officials by surprise. Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman General Joseph Dunford has informed service members that there will be, quote, no modifications to the current policy until the president's direction has been received by the Secretary of Defense, and the Secretary has issued implementation guidance. Speaking at the National Press Club today, Army Chief of Staff General Mark Milley said he learned about the president's decision through the media.
We will work through the implementation guidance when we get it, and then we'll move from there.
H.R. McMaster, the National Security Advisor, actually called the Defense Secretary Jim Mattis while he was on vacation to tell him about the president's decision. He was none too pleased about the social media rollout of this new policy. By the way, for what it's worth, former Secretary of Defense Ash Carter also disagrees with this new policy position, Brett.
Yeah, I heard from the Pentagon also that Mattis was aware of Dunford's statement before it came out.
That's right.
Ahead of time. I want to ask you, have we heard anything yet about this New Yorker piece, about the quotes that we're seeing, about the dust-up officially from the White House?
Well, because it has happened so late in the day, they're pretty quiet, actually, to be honest with you right now, although we did hear from a senior administration official telling us that some folks are feeling uneasy, to say the least, perhaps even fearing for the jobs.
Okay, Kevin, thank you.
All right, not live in the studio, but live on the telephone from Iowa is Dennis Hart, our media expert. And Dennis, welcome to the program. Your, what, 70th appearance or something like that? I lost track.
No, John, it's only 69, I'm sorry to say. It'll be 70 next month, okay, when we do that. Again, from Iowa. This is not the first time we've come out of Iowa, though. I've been here every year for a number of years, and we periodically do these broadcasts when things happen. And, gosh, things are happening, aren't they, with Donald Trump?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And so we're going to go to a quick break because we have a sponsor here on the program today. We'll come back and talk to you more about what's happening today. Of course, John Kelly taking over Chief of Staff. He's a 4-star general. Seems like Donald Trump surrounds himself with all these generals. So why is a general taking over as Chief of Staff? We'll talk about that with Dennis, and we'll wait for your phone calls. The D-Man is here live on the telephone, 436-ME-TV. Option 11, do call in. We have an open line, so call in if you want. Back in a moment. At 20/20 Optometric, your vision is their focus. Whether you're 5 or 65, Dr. Thomas Casagrande will get to know you, your lifestyle, and vision needs to ensure that your contacts or eyeglasses are a perfect fit and the right prescription every time. With the Valley's largest selection of eyewear, 20/20 has over 2,000 frames, including top designer brands like Coach, Tiffany, Prada, Ray-Ban, Oakley, and more. Eye exams start as low as $89, so call or stop by to schedule your appointment today.
When you're looking for KitchenAid innovation and quality, who has the answers, the selection, the price? Ventura TV Appliance. With billions in nationwide appliance buying power, more than Home Depot and Best Buy combined, will help you save. Our low prices on Energy Star qualified KitchenAid appliances save you energy and money, and pay no interest on select models when paid in full within 12 months. Ventura TV Appliance, serving you since 1951.
You know, I'm going over the list here. Dennis Hart is on the phone, and there's so many things to talk about. Besides Reince Priebus, John Kelly taking over today as Chief of Staff. You got the transgender issue. You know, H.R. McMaster, James Mattis, shocked by the tweet put out by Donald Trump. You have the health care issue. You have North Korea. There's so many things on the table to talk about today. My goodness, Dennis, where do we start? Let's start with Reince Priebus because obviously he's out. Scaramucci pounced on him. The minute he got into the White House, he didn't let up. You know that famous picture, infamous picture now, of the both of them standing in the Oval Office or somewhere in the White House, staring each other down. You know what photo I'm talking about?
Yeah, the Wall Street Journal's photo. Absolutely, yeah. You know, it seems obvious from what you've been saying, John, that the Trump White House, and we've talked about this many times on your broadcast, is in a state of chaos. He's running a zoo at the White House. Talk about the terrible month that he's had here in July. I mean, you've mentioned a few things here. His son, Donald Jr., met with Russians, and he only revealed it when the New York Times was ready to report that. The Russians had promised to give him dirt on Hillary Clinton. He lost his press secretary, Sean Spicer, who resigned when the new communications director, Scaramucci, and he really is a scary guy, was appointed. His health care reform went into the toilet on Friday morning when John McCain voted against it. Trump has signed no new legislation at all this month. The House and the Senate passed new sanctions against Russia against his wishes. The crazy guy in North Korea is threatening us again. That's a bad month for the President of the United States. That's a bad one.
Let's start with the Chief of Staff. Okay, Reince Priebus, no surprise when Scaramucci came in. You know, he wanted Reince out. In fact, when Scaramucci came in, he told the press, he told everyone, I will fire everybody in the White House. If I can't find the leakers, I will fire everyone just to make sure we don't, and start all over again just to make sure we don't have any leaks. And so... Scaramucci is out. I mean, not Scaramucci. Scaramucci's in. Priebus is out. Why put John Kelly in there? He's a 4-star general. What does he know about being a Chief of Staff?
He knows nothing about being a Chief of Staff, but what he does know is discipline. And I think that's a good hire on Trump's part. I think Kelly is a strong man, and what Trump reveres most is loyalty and strength. In John Kelly, he's got both. He's this retired 4-star general, as you have said. He knows discipline. If anybody can bring anything under control in the White House, and it's questionable if things can be brought under control because of who occupies the Oval Office, but John Kelly just might be the guy as Chief of Staff. Now, Priebus what's interesting about Reince Priebus is that he really was a Trump loyalist for a long, long period of time. But if you will recall, way back in October of last year during the campaign, when the Washington Post revealed the information that Trump had been caught on tape boasting about groping women and getting away with it because of his celebrity. The Post broke that story on a Sunday. Priebus went to Trump privately, and he'd been a longtime Trump backer, and said, maybe you ought to get out of the race. Trump never forgave him or forgot that. Yes, he appointed Priebus, who had the inside with the Republican Party because he was an insider. He'd been a longtime Republican official. He appointed him chief of staff. But he never really trusted Reince and never thought he was a strong man, a killer. And it was when he pulled away on that October 8th last year and said, maybe you ought to pull out of the race, Trump doesn't like that. He doesn't like anybody telling him what to do. So Priebus was probably a dead man walking almost from the get-go, as Sean Spicer was, as his press secretary. And John, you and I talked about Spicer so many times. What a man he turned out to be. I mean, he was a punchline on Saturday Night Live. He was ripped apart by the press during the ridiculous press conferences he held. Trump didn't like that. So he brought in this guy, Scaramucci. So Scaramucci is the killer in the White House right now, the foul-mouthed, potty-mouthed guy who uses the F word to talk about people who are in the White House. He's there to be the killer. Michael Flynn is there to be the enforcer. And Trump really likes that stuff. Is any of it going to work? Who knows?
Okay, so what will, I mean, besides discipline, what is Kelly going to bring to the table? I mean, what is the job of the chief of staff?
The job of the chief of staff of any president is to be the gatekeeper. Nobody should get in to see the president unless they've gone through the chief of staff. In other words, and that includes cabinet members, almost anybody except the vice president of the United States. The chief of staff is in that front office telling people who can get in to see the president and what issues the president can be confronted with on a daily basis. It's a very important job. It's the calendar keeper. It's the gatekeeper, as I say. So Priebus was perceived as being somewhat weak in this. Priebus was the insider, the Washington establishment insider. As you know, Trump wants to drain the swamp. Kelly is the guy who Trump has a lot of faith in, as he does with Jim Mattis, who's the Secretary of Defense. Kelly's the guy, Director of Homeland Security, former Director of Homeland Security now, whom Trump trusted implicitly. Trump likes to have generals on his staff with Mattis and with Flynn, and tried to have Flynn on there, and Flynn blew up, and now Kelly. So he has the president's confidence. He has the power, apparently, which Trump's giving him, to be the gatekeeper. And so the best thing we can hope out of John Kelly is discipline and message and maybe a sense of the White House is somewhat under control. Right now, I think everybody except, and there are a lot of Trump backers, 39% of the country still backs Donald Trump. His backers don't care what's going on in the White House. It doesn't matter to them at all. The fact that people are being fired, no problem. The fact that this guy is using foul language, Scaramucci, no problem. It's the way they really want to talk anyway. For the rest of the country, it's a horror show. It's the Rocky Horror Picture Show being repeated on a daily basis. So we hope, and I do too, that John Kelly can provide some discipline in terms of a message coming out of the White House.
All right, Dennis Hart is on the phone live from Iowa talking about the Donald Trump administration, and we do have an open phone line, so you can call in. Before I go to break here, Donald Trump, his approval rating, excuse me, is 36%, which is very low, as you know. There he is right now. The President of the United States has a disapproval rating of 58%. So it's 36% say they like him, 58% say they don't like him. Dennis, quickly, what do you make of that?
Well, what I make of that is that his body of support, the president's body of support, is very strong. The base is about 35, 36%. What I make of this is that no matter what the president says, does, or doesn't do, it doesn't matter to his base. It was a very interesting conversation yesterday on This Week with George Stephanopoulos on ABC. Martha Raddatz was hosting, and she had as one of her guests Bill Cunningham, who's a talk show host at WLW Radio in Cincinnati, great longtime radio station there, very conservative talk show host. She asked him, what do people in Trump country think after all of this? And Cunningham, who has always been a Trump backer, said, look, the price of gas is under $2 in the Midwest. And by the way, it is. I'm in Iowa right now. The price of gas is incredibly cheap.
Not in California. Not in California, though.
I know. It's remarkable when you come out here. I had to fly 2,000 miles to get a much cheaper gas to fill up my tank, much cheaper. I'm renting a car, and it's costing me very little money because of the price of gas here. But it's not just the price of gas. It's the fact that unemployment is doing well, the stock market's doing well, and that Trump supporters, that 36% of the country, they don't care about the chaos. They elected him to be chaotic. They elected him to blow up Washington. Well, he certainly seems to be doing that. I don't know that there's anything that will shake that 35, 36, 37% of the population from Trump. Remember that when Richard Nixon was impeached back in 1974 and removed, articles of impeachment were voted. He was not impeached. He resigned before he could be impeached. His base of support was 35 or 36%. So there is that part of the country, John, that I truly believe, no matter what the president says or does, they're going to back him for some reasons that they believe are good.
All right, we're going to go to break here. Dennis Hart is on the phone. We're talking about President Donald Trump. Let's put his picture up again, just real quick before we go to break. The president, there he is, fixing his cuff right there on his suit, looking spiffy as usual. Donald Trump, approval rating 36%, disapproval 58%. What do you think? I want you to call in. 436-ME-TV, option 11. Did you vote for the Donald? Did you not vote for Trump? Did you vote for Hillary or Bernie? What do you think about what's been going on the last 6 months, especially this past weekend with the White House again blowing up? What they've had half a dozen, I think, administration officials now either resign or get fired, including James Comey, the FBI director who was fired by Donald Trump. There's also the possibility that Robert Mueller may get the axe if Trump has his way. He's the special investigator looking into the Russian connection at last year's election. 436-ME-TV, option 11. Dennis Hart is here. 69th appearance on the program. Want you to call in and weigh in. Back in a moment.
Frigidaire. We introduced the first home freezer, the first pulsator agitator washer, and now we introduce the Frigidaire Orbit Clean dishwasher, designed with a unique wash arm that gives you 4 times more water coverage for a consistently better clean. Frigidaire, over 90 years of legendary innovation.
See the full line of Frigidaire appliances at Ventura TV Electronics and Appliances.
At 2020 Optometric, your vision is their focus. Whether you're 5 or 65, Dr. Thomas Casagrande will get to know you, your lifestyle, and vision needs to ensure that your contacts or eyeglasses are a perfect fit and the right prescription every time. With the Valley's largest selection of eyewear, 2020 has over 2,000 frames, including top designer brands like Coach, Tiffany, Prada, Ray-Ban, Oakley, and more. Eye exams start as low as $89, so call or stop by to schedule your appointment today.
The new Frigidaire Professional line at Ventura TV Video Appliance. Enjoy generous-sized cooktops and sauté or simmer with ease, while true convection ovens offer even baking and juicy roasting perfection. Foods stay their freshest in spacious refrigerators with convenient controls and clear filtered ice and water. Easy to clean surfaces reduce fingerprints, and the quietest of dishwashers makes cleanup a snap. The new Frigidaire Professional line at Ventura TV Video Appliance.
Back here on the program live from Iowa is Dennis Hart, our media expert. I want to put up the picture of James Comey because he's one that was fired by Donald Trump not too long ago. He wanted to penetrate and dig deeper, further into the Russian investigation, the connection into the 2016 election. How about the picture of Sean Spicer? He either resigned or was fired, doesn't matter, he's out. You've had others who have left the organization or the administration either being fired or resigned. Sally Yates, Reince Priebus, of course, Michael Flynn. There have been others as well. There's Michael Flynn right there. He has been out as well. So, Dennis, what does this tell you? There have been at least a half a dozen or more that are now gone. I just mentioned a few of them.
Well, it says a couple of things, John, and one of them is that Donald Trump is a loyalty freak, and anybody he perceives as being disloyal to him, he does not trust. He also likes chaos. He is living and breathing, and he is generating absolute chaos inside and outside the White House, and he seems to enjoy this. Now, this is not a way to govern. In fact, the truth in the pudding on that is, the proof of the pudding is, nothing's gotten done under President Trump. The health care thing, it's gone. He couldn't get it through.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. But,
yeah.
But yeah, go ahead, Dennis. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, he values loyalty and he values chaos. Look what he's doing to his own Attorney General. I know you were about to bring this one up, Jeff Sessions.
Jeff Sessions.
He has vilified this man, Jeff Sessions, who was the first. Let me remind our listeners and our viewers here. Jeff Sessions was the first senator to endorse Donald Trump last year during the campaign. Right. The first one. He stood by Trump when that video came out of Trump talking about how he was groping women and he could get away with it because he was a celebrity. Sessions, when he was interviewed about that, said he wasn't sure that groping women was sexual assault. Jeff Sessions did that. For his loyalty, he was appointed Attorney General. Now Trump's turned on him because in Trump's mind, Sessions hasn't been loyal enough because he recused himself from the Russian investigations, therefore could not block Comey or the new Attorney General or Mueller from investigating. Trump now sees Sessions as a traitor. He has vilified him for the past week, hoping he will resign because he really doesn't want to have to fire him. And trust me, I think on this one, John, if Donald Trump fires Jeff Sessions, that's going to create a firestorm in Congress because, as you know, Republicans have already put a protective circle around Sessions because they like him. Not necessarily all of his politics, but he's a nice guy, and there's a certain thing about the Senate where everybody rallies around senators. If Trump moves on Jeff Sessions, if he moves on him, I think there's a firestorm where a considerable part of Trump's Republican allies will pull away from him.
How about the issue of transgender military personnel and Donald Trump putting out the tweet last week, shocking everybody in the Pentagon, shocking H.R. McMaster, his national security advisor, Defense Secretary James Mattis. This sent ripples through Washington, D.C., and then he backed off. So here's another example of Donald Trump going off the deep end on Twitter and then backing off. How many times can he do this? And was this necessary? Why did he bring up the transgender issue in the military?
Well, it came out of nowhere, and as you suggest, it absolutely stunned his own Secretary of Defense, who had no idea this was coming up. You don't know why he does these things. He seems almost addicted to creating chaos on Twitter, making policy by Twitter, which is outrageous. And, of course, the firestorm that he generated from that forced him to at least temporarily back off. One of those involved in the firestorm was the junior senator from Iowa, where I am right now, Joni Ernst, who is, by the way, a military veteran and was elected a year or so ago. She ripped Trump to pieces. She's a conservative Republican, but she ripped him to pieces, saying the best qualified people should be the ones in our military. This has absolutely nothing to do with transgender. Why are you bringing this up? Now, this was one of his backers saying this, okay? So it's almost incomprehensible to anybody who values government, or good government, to know why Donald Trump...
Hang on, caller. Hang on.
Trump continues to create his own chaos. He continues to undermine himself with these ridiculous tweet storms, these rants on Twitter, which make no sense, where he says these most outrageous things. It could be about North Korea, it could be about Jeff Sessions, it could be about Reince Priebus, who knows, but obviously this is not working. What he's doing on Twitter is bullying, trying to bully virtually everybody. it's not working, and the proof in the pudding is nothing's getting done.
All right, Dennis, hang on. We got a call. Caller, okay, you're on the air with Dennis Hart, live from Iowa. We're talking about Donald Trump today. What's your comment? What's your question? Hope you have your TV muted.
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I heard your guest say, and rightly so, he said that, that unemployment is down, and he said that the stock market is up and all these things. But, this was going on when Obama was president. He took over. They were losing 800,000 jobs a month. He's averaged close to 300,000 a month jobs. And just because the guy's been in there for 6 months, he takes the credit on something that was already going in the right direction. Let me tell you, as an example, I don't remember the name of the company. The company said that they're going to build a plant here. This was right after he was elected, maybe a month or so. He was in office. This company said that they were going to build a plant here. He takes credit for it. And then they came out and said this was in the works for 8 months, almost a year before he became president. And the thing is, don't give him credit. No one can tell me what he's done in the 6 months that would help increase the unemployment or decrease the unemployment. It's been going that way since Obama took office. And he's done nothing. He hasn't had a direction. That's all I have to say. Please, I'll take it on the air if that's all right.
Thank you very much for the call. Dennis, did you catch all of that?
Yeah, I heard all of that, and the caller makes a very good point. When I said, remember what I said? I said that Bill Cunningham, the WLW radio talk show host in Cincinnati on national TV yesterday, used the stock market and the price of gas and unemployment, the low unemployment rate, as 3 reasons why people in his part of the country, in Ohio, in Indiana, in Michigan, are still backing Trump because they haven't seen, because to their minds, in their lives, what happens inside the White House in terms of chaos, they don't care whether Reince Priebus is chief of staff or John Kelly. They could care less if Scaramucci is making comments or Sean Spicer. They don't care whether Kellyanne Conway is lying or not. What they know in their lives is they elected Donald Trump to be president to blow things up. They hated Hillary Clinton.
Yes, but Dennis, the caller is making the point about the unemployment, about the gas rates, and about the stock market, that these things were going on. They were going in this direction when President Obama was still in office. So why is Donald Trump taking credit?
Because every president takes credit for that. Your caller makes an absolutely right on, spot on point. All of this was going on during Obama's administration. I didn't say it wasn't, but the president's taking credit for it because that's what presidents do. Just as presidents blame their predecessors for anything that's going wrong or anything that continues to go wrong. So why shouldn't Trump take credit for it? I mean, here he is. It is true the stock market is up. It is true gas prices are very low across much of the country, if not in California. It is true that unemployment is at a very good rate. Yes, President Obama had much to do with this, but look, what else is Trump going to say right now? He's getting nothing through Congress. His big thing was health care. That's died, okay? That's not going to happen. Now he's going to push tax reform. That's going to die. That's not going to happen. So what can he do except rail against leakers, which he does on a daily basis, or has Scaramucci do it, rail against those Republicans who do not follow the party line, i.e. John McCain, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins of Maine, etc. I mean, he's got nothing going in terms of a positive momentum, so why not use the shiny coin thing? Let's divert attention here. Let's talk about, how unemployment's great. Let's also talk about how Hillary Clinton ought to be prosecuted. Hillary Clinton, right. Let's talk about Hillary Clinton, who I truly believe he believes won the Oval Office because he keeps talking about her all the time, even though she's doing nothing. She lost, etc.
Hey, Dennis, we talked about how many people have have been shown the door at the White House. Priebus, Flynn, Spicer, Comey, Yates. There have been others as well. Do you see anybody else that's on the bubble that could be on the way out? Maybe Kellyanne Conway. Jeff Sessions, we already talked about, could be on the way out because he recused himself from the Russia investigation. And quite frankly, do you blame him? If you were Jeff Sessions, you might have done the same thing. But is Kellyanne Conway or anybody else in trouble in that White House, do you think? What about Steve Bannon?
Well, now, see, here's the interesting thing about Bannon, who is a chief White House advisor to Trump. Scaramucci blowtorched him, as you know, last week.
Oh, yeah.
This is, in fact, Scaramucci used one of those phrases that if you use it on television, your career is over, okay?
Right.
But he can use it because he's speaking for Trump, and that's just the way Trump feels. Of course, Scaramucci also used foul language in talking about Priebus. But in answer to your question, I don't think Bannon's on the hot seat, but I think what Scaramucci was doing was saying, I'm the boss now, big boy. Even though I'm only communications director and you're a White House advisor, I'm the boss, and you're not going to get the best of me. Conway, I don't think, is in trouble because she lies with the best of them on cable TV. She comes on and she does the alternative facts thing. The guy who's in the most trouble, there's no question, we've already talked about, is Sessions. Number 1A on the list, though. Sessions is 1 on the list. Number 1A, and this will be a firestorm if this happens.
Okay.
If Trump fires Robert Mueller, the special counsel who's investigating the Russians, that could create enough of a firestorm to lead to impeachment votes. That could.
Yeah. Hey, we're talking with Dennis Hart from Iowa on the telephone, and I urge you, my friends, to call in 436-MeTV option 11. I already had one very outstanding phone call here talking about the Trump administration and what a wild ride it has been the last 6 months. I mean, right from day one, right after the inauguration, the day after the inauguration, it was a firestorm with that press conference, remember, from Sean Spicer, wearing that suit that didn't fit him properly, from the comments he made about the size of the crowd and everything else. It has been a firestorm that hasn't let up, 6 months and running, and we're still going. 436-MeTV, option 11. We're back in just a moment after this from Thomas Casagrande, our sponsor today, 2020 Optometrics.
Not sure what you're watching? Want to see what's coming up next? Or just want to browse what's on without the hassle of flipping channels? Your wish has come true. Now you can view schedules for all the digital TV channels available in the Central Valley. Get local weather updates and forecasts, and listen to nationally syndicated Biz Talk Radio, all on KVHF 4.1. Rescan your TV now, then tune in to Digital Channel 4.1 to start enjoying the all-new TV Guide.
At 2020 Optometric, your vision is their focus. Whether you're 5 or 65, Dr. Thomas Casagrande will get to know you, your lifestyle, and vision needs to ensure that your contacts or eyeglasses are a perfect fit and the right prescription every time. With the Valley's largest selection of eyewear, 2020 has over 2,000 frames, including top designer brands like Coach, Tiffany, Prada, Ray-Ban, Oakley, and more. Eye exams start as low as $89, so call or stop by to schedule your appointment today.
Christina Maurice, Anthony Scaramucci is tweeting about his profanity-laced interview, saying in part he won't make the mistake of trusting a reporter again.
The West Wing looking more like the Wild West, especially after the new White House communications director's interview in the New Yorker magazine. Anthony Scaramucci took aim at Chief of Staff Reince Priebus and Chief Strategist Steve Bannon in a vulgar tirade. In just one quote, Reince is an expletive, paranoid schizophrenic, a paranoiac. Reporter Ryan Lizza says he had the on-the-record conversation with Scaramucci when Scaramucci called him to complain about leaks.
He was very worked up. He was angry.
In the article, Scaramucci accused Priebus of leaking his financial disclosure form, a document that is publicly available. Both Bannon and Priebus opposed Scaramucci's hiring. Long Island Republican Congressman Peter King weighed in.
I don't think anyone other than the insiders, including me, cares what Anthony Scaramucci says about Reince Priebus and Steve Bannon. Now, how it works out, though, as far as a functioning White House, that's what we have to see.
After the article came out, Scaramucci tweeted, quote, I sometimes use colorful language. I will refrain in this arena, but not give up the passionate fight for President Trump's agenda. A few hours later, he added, quote, I made a mistake in trusting in a reporter. It won't happen again. These are not the only rocky relationships in the White House.
It's kind of hurtful, but the President of the United States is a strong leader.
Attorney General Jeff Sessions spoke out on Fox News Channel about criticisms from President Trump. Sessions says he did the right thing in recusing himself from the Russia probe and has no plans to resign.
I serve at the pleasure of the President. If he wants to make a change, he can certainly do so.
Sessions is in El Salvador as part of the Justice Department's work to crack down on MS-13. President Trump will address that gang violence when he heads to Long Island tomorrow afternoon. He's expected at Suffolk County Community College's Brentwood campus. Live in the newsroom, Andrea Grimes, CBS 2 News.
All right, and so that certainly was a jaw-dropper, to say the least. Scaramucci talking to the New Yorker magazine last week in that scorching interview, using very foul language. And Dennis, before we go to the caller, Scaramucci's response was, it looked like he was backtracking. He says, sometimes I use colorful language. A great way to explain that, right?
Well, I mean, that's obviously his cover story. He fully intended to say what he said. You don't use that kind of language in front of a reporter unless you believe that it's going to get reported, unless you want to send a message out. Right. So, yeah, he's just a foul-mouthed guy. He's the, as I said earlier, the enforcer, apparently, the new enforcer in the administration, the new threatener, the guy who's going to fire everybody, though he has no power to fire anybody. After all, he's only the communications director. So it is relatively simple what's happening in the White House. Trump likes these strong, tough guys to say outrageous things and do outrageous things. That's his style of governing. The only problem the president has right now is that, and I think this is hard to dispute, nothing's getting done.
Correct.
Where is the health care bill? Where is tax reform? Where is any of it? It's not there.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a moment. Meantime, let's go to the caller. You're on the air with Dennis Hart. What say you about the Trump administration?
Well, 2 weeks ago, or better, I called and told you and Dennis both that Trump is a magician. He uses his hands for misdirection and all this. What can you not say about somebody who wants to be a dictator? You get all the people that run the economy, all those billionaires, then you bring in all the generals you can bring in, and so that you got the economy covered and you got the military end covered. But you're still a magician. It's all and why is it not possible that Trump is leaking his own news and his own false news?
Okay.
Wouldn't you, if you were a magician, wouldn't you want all the misdirection you can get?
All right.
So
caller.
Anyway.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for the call. I appreciate it. We'll let Dennis comment on that. So, Dennis, is Trump a magician, and is it possible he's leaking his own information somewhere?
Well, that's kind of a House of Cards scenario, if you're familiar with that Netflix show starring Kevin Spacey, where the president there did the exact same thing. I agree with the caller in terms of the magician. The magician being the guy who diverts your attention while he's really doing the trick so that you don't see how the trick is done. That could be what Trump does with many of his tweets. In other words, when he keeps bringing back Hillary Clinton is not an issue because guess what? She didn't get elected. She has no power. But he keeps bringing her up. Maybe it's a diversion to show us, to take us away from the focus, which is health care is repealed and replaced was a disaster. He showed no leadership. He's the man who claims to know the art of the deal, wrote the book about that, yet he couldn't get it done. Many, these ridiculous tweets about leaks and all of this and how the news media are the enemy of the people, that could be, a diversion. In terms of, though, Trump being his own leaker, I don't think so. I don't think he's sophisticated enough to have pulled that one off, no.
Okay, let's talk about health care, because on Friday morning, as you well know, the Senate Republicans and the Democrats, they were on the floor in the wee hours of the morning, 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, voting on this skinny repeal amendment on Obamacare. Let me just share with you about the votes here. The votes were as follows, and I'll put this call on hold here just for a moment so I can get through this. Caller, can you hang on a moment, please? Whoops, that caller just went away. All right, the votes were as follows. 51 no, 49 yes. That means it was defeated. 3 Republicans voted no. It was John McCain of Arizona, Susan Collins of Maine, and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. We have a soundbite with John McCain, who presided over the Senate floor after showing up after being diagnosed with brain cancer. John McCain almost scolded the Republicans in the Senate, almost scolded Donald Trump, the President of the United States, for trying to repeal what he calls just a bad policy in Obamacare, but does not want to repeal it. Listen to what John McCain had to say on the Senate floor last Friday.
Let's return to regular order. We've been spinning our wheels on too many important issues because we keep trying to find a way to win without help from across the aisle. That's an approach that's been employed by both sides, mandating legislation from the top down without any support from the other side, with all the parliamentary maneuvers that requires. We're getting nothing done, my friends. We're getting nothing done. All we've managed to do is make more popular a policy that wasn't very popular when we started trying to get rid of it. I voted for the motion to proceed to allow debate to continue and amendments to be offered. I will not vote for this bill as it is today. It's a shell of a bill right now. We all know that. I have changes urged by my state's governor that will have to be included to earn my support for final passage of any bill. I know many of you will have to see the bill change substantially for you to support it. We tried to do this by coming up with a proposal behind closed doors in consultation with the administration, then springing it on skeptical members, trying to convince them that it's better than nothing, asking us to swallow our doubts and force it past a unified opposition. I don't think that's going to work in the end, and probably shouldn't. The success of the Senate is important to the continued success of America. This country, this big, boisterous, brawling, intemperate, restless, striving, daring, beautiful, bountiful, brave, good, and magnificent country needs us to help it thrive. That responsibility is more important than any of our personal interests or political affiliation. We are the servants of a great nation, a nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal.
All right, that was John McCain on the floor of the Senate last Friday. And before we go back to Dennis, I just want to say that they tried to repeal and replace the amendment just about a week or two ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. The vote was 57 no, 43 yes. 9 Republicans at the time voted no. After that, they tried a partial repeal on the amendment. 55 voted no, 45 yes, 7 Republicans voted no, and then the skinny repeal failed as well last Friday. So John McCain, Dennis, basically saying, look, you know, you're trying to do this behind closed doors in concert with the president and trying to present this to skeptical members of the Senate that aren't sure where they stand on it, and then they try to spring it on the American people. It's not right. It shouldn't work. It can't work. It won't work. What do you think of McCain?
I think he is the epitome of what John F. Kennedy wrote about decades ago in his book, Profiles in Courage. You want to talk about a courageous week for this man who has been diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. He seemingly now is free to do what he truly thinks is right because there will be no political repercussions. He comes back to the Senate, interrupting his chemotherapy, interrupting his procedure to try to knock this thing down a little bit. He comes back and makes a brilliant speech that's going to be remembered for a long, long time, in which he also excoriated talk radio and cable TV for terrifying Republicans and asked Republicans to grow up and stop listening to these folks. And then at the very last moment, in one of the more dramatic scenes, where he huddles with people on the floor of the Senate on Friday morning, early Friday morning, and goes up to Dianne Feinstein to tell her he's going to vote against this, and she hugs him. This man who has been excoriating Republicans for the secret, There were no public hearings on any of these health care bills. Senators had no idea what they were voting on. It was just some effort in order to fulfill a campaign promise to repeal Obamacare. It would have thrown millions of people off health insurance. And John McCain flies back from Arizona, postponing his treatment so that he can cast the vote to kill it. I call that a profile in courage. I call John McCain a hero.
All right. So why did we have a call waiting? But I got to get to this. 3 times to try to repeal Obamacare did not work. It went down each of those 3 times consecutively. The last time last Friday. I mentioned the bills. I mentioned the votes. 9 Republicans the first time, 7 the second time, 3 the third time. Why has this bill failed? Why can't it move forward? Why can't they repeal and replace? What's going on?
Because you have the Republican Party completely fractured. You have the extreme right, which believes that people should not have a right to health care. They want to eliminate everything, including subsidies for poor people, gut Medicaid. That's the extreme right. You've got a group of people who are moderates who say we cannot do that. We have to help people who need help. And you've got a wide group of people in the middle who are terrified of doing anything. They don't quite know which way to go. They'd really like to get rid of Obamacare, but they realize, my goodness, we're going to toss millions of people off. You have a Republican Party that cannot reach agreement. That's why they control everything. They control the House, they control the Senate, and they can't get this through, and they likely can't get anything else through.
All right, caller, short on time. Go ahead. You're on with Dennis Hart.
Okay. Hello. Look, I'm not smart, and I live out in the middle of the nowheres. And my question is, to everybody that voted for this president that we have, I have a lot of mixed feelings about him, but most of all is fear. And the second one is, I would agree with one of the callers that called him Houdini, because didn't anybody watch his show when he had his program? And what happened to all the students that were suing him? And why is it that he wants everybody to pay taxes when he didn't pay taxes for a heck of a years? I don't know about who these people voted for, but they got to be dumber than me. Okay. I'm not bright. I can't read, I can't write, but I'll tell you what. This state of California that I live in, I love to death. But this president scares me. He scares me. I'm in poverty. I've always been in poverty. My children are striving. But this president, he's trying to make smoke where there's no fire.
Gotcha.
There's no fire. You know, he just blows up. No tantrum.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you for the call.
Everybody else that voted for him,
all right,
you guys must not speak English or not understand the Constitution.
Okay, thank you for the call, ma'am. I appreciate it. Thank you very much for the input. A very insightful call from one of our viewers here. I want to change topics. She clearly stated what she thought of Donald Trump and the system. Anyway, let's put up the picture of Vladimir Putin. He's the president of Russia. You know what he did over the weekend? Sanctions against Russia passed by Congress. So Vladimir Putin said, okay, you know what's going to happen? I'm going to ban up to 755 U.S. diplomats, Dennis, from working and thriving in this country of Russia. Only problem is, according to the New York Times, right now there's only 345 Americans working in Russia as of now, as we speak, many of whom report regular harassment by Russian officials. So how can he ban 755 diplomats from working when there are only 345 there now?
Well, he's putting 400 on a list that there are 400 blanks on the list, so the next 400 won't be allowed to go to work. I guess that's what he's doing there on that.
We lost you. Hey, Dennis, we lost you for a moment there. Go ahead and say that again.
Yeah, John, this is tit for tat. That's all this is. This is Putin lashing out because his boy Donald Trump, whom he tried to get elected during the campaign, has been superseded by Congress with a veto-proof majority, and Trump will have to sign this bill, or he'll veto it and it'll be overridden. But in terms of banning 745 people when you've only got 350 or so working there, it doesn't matter what the numbers are. It's all symbolic. It's all part of what happens when some countries do this all the time. We're going to get back at you for doing this. It means nothing, far less important than what's going on in North Korea. I mean, Trump and Putin have reasons to get along because Putin did not want Hillary Clinton to be president. I think this is all for show.
All right. Dan Coates, who is the Director of National Intelligence, told a security conference in Aspen, Colorado here recently this month that he has no doubt that the Russians are trying to undermine Western democracy. Do you believe Vladimir Putin is trying to do that?
Sure, I think he does that with a lot of countries. I think his interference with our election, which is undeniable because our intelligence agencies say they did that, the Russians did that, but he doesn't just do it here. I think he does it. He tried to do it in France in the last election, but Macron won. He tries to do it in Great Britain. Look, this is a communist country, all right? It is to their advantage to have Western democracies weakened or put into chaos so that they can advance their goals. I think we ought to look at Vladimir Putin in the same way we look at any other enemy of the American people. Not as somebody that we want to go drop a nuke on. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that in North Korea. But somebody who doesn't have our best interests at heart. And for Trump to deny, and this has always fascinated me, and it's flummoxed me and virtually everybody else, for Trump to deny that the Russians had any part in our last election is just a lie, because all of our intelligence agencies say they do. It does not mean the Russians elected Donald Trump. It means they were trying to influence the election.
All right, Dennis, not too much time left, just a couple of minutes, 2 minutes to be exact. I want to put up the picture of Kim Jong-un. Of course, he is the dictator in North Korea. You know about the latest test missile. It can reach continental U.S., even Washington, D.C., according to some of the experts. Will Donald Trump, the president, have no other option other than to attack North Korea's nuclear sites to get rid of this problem?
No, he has other options, and that's the worst of all options, because that would lead to the death of millions of people, because North Korea would unleash all of the medium-range missiles it has and devastate South Korea, and we cannot, and the military knows this, we cannot knock out all of those missiles. There are other You can pressure China, which Trump is trying to do, to impose sanctions on North Korea. China is the only country in the world that has any influence on North Korea. But you could also opt for regime change, which would be the optimum here. In other words, pressure China to try to get rid of this guy. Or if we have any, and we don't have, the CIA cannot get into North Korea. It's a completely closed-off country. The ideal thing would be for China to put a lid on this guy in terms of economic sanctions, or to force him out, because China doesn't want a war. China does not want us bombing North Korea, because that would put millions of North Korean refugees across their border and create a chaotic situation for them.
And
I think our best hope is a combination of sanctions and pressure on China for regime change.
Okay, quickly, 30 seconds. If China does not respond, then what?
Then we had better get our anti-missile defenses in order, because this guy in North Korea is the single most dangerous guy in the world. This guy is so crazy he could actually send a missile our way, and we'd better be ready to knock that puppy down.
All right. Dennis Hart, 69th appearance, out of time. Glad you're with us. We'll see you next month here.
I'll be around by telephone from Iowa one more month, my friend. I'll be on your show. Happy to do it.
All right, Dennis. Take care. Have a good day.
Bye.
All right, Dennis Hart by telephone here on the program. Connect with me on MeTV Fresno. See you tomorrow. That's it for this day. A.J. Rasomny, our guest on Tuesday. Have a great day, everybody. 2020 Optometric, your vision is their focus. Whether you're 5 or 65, Dr. Thomas Casagrande will get to know you, your lifestyle, and vision needs to ensure that your contacts or eyeglasses are a perfect fit and the right prescription every time. With the Valley's largest selection of eyewear, 2020 has over 2,000 frames, including top designer brands like Coach, Tiffany, Prada, Ray-Ban, Oakley, and more. Eye exams start as low as $89. So call or stop by to schedule your appointment today.
Frigidaire. We introduced the first home freezer.